Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Life Redesigned podcast. Ooh, I'm so excited for today. I'm so excited for you all to get this inspiration from Shallan, and I'm super excited for her to share her story. You guys, this is one badass woman. Trust me. You have to be so excited that you're listening to this episode because you're about to hear. I feel like we should be playing that. What's that song by Carrie Underwood, The Overcomer? Wait, is that by Carrie Underwood? Do you know that song? That should just be playing in the entire background of this entire
I
feel like. So super excited to have you. It's been so long since we've seen each other, and I can't wait for you to share so much of your story today. So thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if we could get started by you just giving us a little snippet of maybe some history of you and a little bit about you, that would be awesome.
So yeah, a little bit of background on me. So, well, I'm actually currently in my main, position in life right now is I'm the CEO and founder of MaskIT. I actually invented the product, and I'm happy to share just a little bit about who I am and kind of how we got to where we're at today. But I actually have not had the most simple or easy life. And in fact, I started out my life being a mom at the age of 17. And I moved out and was on my own from a very young age. Started kind of over in California. I got a job working for a shoe designer. I was riding my bike to work, had a babysitter during the day, type of situation. So a lot to overcome just with that. And then I eventually had met another gentleman that was actually an awesome person for my kids. And I can never say anything negative about him as a father. However, we went through a lot of hardship. And through these years, I had multiple jobs, which kind of contributed to where I'm at with MaskIT today. But I definitely feel that in probably I would say in 2011, I felt completely broken. I described myself as a walking dead person. I just was emotionally spent, you know what I mean? But yeah. I'm sure as all women can relate to, I had children. And so I had to just keep it together, you know?
Yeah, you had to make it work. You had to make life work. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep moving forward. And, so eventually I found the strength and got out of that really destructive relationship for me. So here I am, a single mom again, but I had another daughter. So I'm a single mom with 3 daughters. We lived in a house with a septic tank, and which means no flushing for menstrual items. So I walk into the restroom one day and see this overflowing trash can, and literally just was so frustrated because there was nothing I could do. They weren't doing anything wrong. It's just that all we had was toilet paper to try and cover up tampons and pads, which never made any sense.
Yeah.
And I was just oh my God, there's got to be a better way. And then it's hard to know how you, or hard to describe how you have an idea, but I just had this moment where I was why couldn't you have something you put on your hand before you remove your item and then just invert it to self-contain everything and seal it shut? That would make the process cleaner.
Yeah, like you do a poop bag for a dog or something.
Yeah, similarly, right? But you need dexterity, right? So you could remove your items. And so I was yes. And I went into my kitchen and started designing some prototypes. And then I realized I might be getting a little ahead of myself, and did a lot of research and did discover that no one had my idea. There were other types of disposal bags out there, but no one who had thought through the whole process. So some of my personal pet peeves around menstruation or removing my own tampons was sometimes it was just impossible to not get blood under my fingernails, which I'm a very clean person and I hated that. You can't take a sticky pad and put it in any bag without a struggle because it's going to stick on the sides, right? Unless you wrap it in toilet paper first, of course. But anyways, so I was excited to learn that no one had my idea, and I at least that was on the market. Then I researched the US patent database and confirmed that in fact, no one had my idea. And so I was really excited about it, but I was, as I was researching, I learned that 20 billion tampons and pads go to US landfills every year. So if you can even put your head around that, 20 billion tampons and pads have gone to US landfills every year. And so I immediately decided, well, I'm not going to do anything with my idea unless I can find a truly environmentally friendly way to do it. Because in my mind, I wanted something that would be leak proof, that would block odor, that it had to be soft and flexible. And so all of those things are like what you would associate with plastic. And I was like, I'm not going to contribute potentially 20 billion pieces of plastic to a landfill, because I don't think I'm the only woman who has an issue or is frustrated with this situation.
Absolutely.
So then I spent 6 months researching all the different types of film that exist out there. And that was a very extensive process. I learned way more about plastics than I wanted to know, but I realized through asking questions that there's a lot of greenwashing out there. People just want to sell you their product. And so some plastics that claim they're biodegradable are actually what's called oxidogradable. So the manufacturer will add an additive to the polyethylene that makes it fragment faster, but the fragments still remain for 1,000 years. So it breaks into smaller pieces, but it's actually still there. This was not acceptable for me, you know, and then eventually found 100% plant-based biofilm that is already organic material, and it can be consumed by microorganisms that live in the soils. And so when I finally found the right film, I actually filed my patent because I had been working on technical drawings and writings. And then that led me on a year journey of trying to find someone who would actually make it. And this was like a very discouraging process. Like in the beginning, I found that I never really wanted to talk about my idea, because especially people close to me, like my family, were just like very negative, and you hear all the things like 95% of startup companies fell, and
welcome to entrepreneurship. You have an idea and everyone around you wants to tell you it's not going to work. Like, can you just pick one person that is my family or close friends that will tell me that this is going to work and they believe in me?
Yeah. So I just kind of stopped talking about it for a moment. And I guess what I realized when I decided to take it on, like when I filed that patent, I was like, I've never done anything like this before, but why not me? If there's anything that I know about myself, is that I can overcome challenges. I've done it over and over and over again in my life up until that point. And so I did not let the fact that I was a single mom with 3 daughters stop me in any way. Like, I fully committed, like, this is what I was going to do. And a little bit more background on why I was so passionate about it is during my time of, hardness in life before this, I had actually worked in hospitals, and I had learned about bloodborne pathogens. And I knew that there's this major discrepancy in how blood is treated in every other environment in comparison to the public restroom. And unfortunately, that's just leaving everyone at risk. So all of these things in my past had kind of contributed to, I think, what gave me the exact idea that I had, right? Because I knew like glove-like protection would also reduce touch point contamination in the restroom. The fact that everything's sealed inside would protect custodians from exposure. Most people don't realize that diseases like Hep B, Hep C, MRSA, they all live on surfaces outside of the body.
I mean, I'm freaking out of like thinking about time when you didn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing, or like when MaskIT didn't exist. I mean, all of this stuff as women, you think about hospitals of just like how careful and sanitary everything has to be. And then as women, we're just trying to figure this out in a bathroom, and who knows if people are washing their hands and what else they're touching. And then, I mean, anywhere, I'm dying. This is like, I'm just.
So it's actually like mind blowing to me.
Absolutely.
Just because people have been uncomfortable with the topic, I believe is the reason why it's been ignored for so long. And not to mention in the past, a lot of facility management has been actually men. And I don't think that they realized or maybe they realized the problems they were having because people would flush when the receptacle is dirty and that kind of thing. But I don't know that anybody like really thought through exactly what's happening. It just sort of has been this uncomfortable topic that's leaving everyone at risk unnecessarily, right? Because there's a difference between menstrual blood and blood when it comes to risks. And the truth is, in restrooms that don't provide MaskIT, like people are handling blood during the removal process. They touch the same receptacle, they flush the toilet, they open the stall door, the soap, the water, all the touch points in the restroom. And then the next woman comes in and shuts that stall door behind her, maybe blows her nose. Well, mucous membranes are one way that you can contract these bloodborne pathogens. So if there's contamination on any of these touch points and you come in contact with a mucous membrane or even have a small cut or abrasion on your fingers, that could be a way that you get it. And hundreds of people every year, like I shouldn't say hundreds, thousands of people every year get diagnosed with like Hep B, Hep C. Most of them have no idea where they got it. And it's really interesting because it's like kind of a big hole in infection control. So the benefits of MaskIT from a health and safety standpoint were huge. So of course I had written my business plan and like, so I knew what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but I was willing to learn. I was willing to ask questions and I knew I could overcome challenges. So
so were you doing all of this research? This was when you were a single mom with 3 kids. You were doing all the research, you were writing drawings, all this.
Yeah.
This was when you were a single mom, right? What year was this? This was what year?
So the fall of 2012 is when I had the idea.
Okay. So we are talking about the era of when women weren't quite, like you mentioned, like a lot of, that CEO, that management, like a lot of that within industries, companies were men. At that point, we were not yet seeing women in those positions.
No.
So now you have come up with this idea and you're coming out to go, pitch to all these men?
Exactly.
Talking about something that is, that right there, a lot of people will be like, okay, I have this great idea and maybe I should have a man go talk about it. That alone is like, were you nervous? Were you freaking out? Were you just like confident? I got this?
Yeah, no, I really wasn't nervous at all. I just felt really strongly about the benefits that MaskIT could provide. And I felt there's just a need of education. Like and I really have approached it that way from all along. So I've also found that like when you're comfortable or at ease, it kind of sets other people, at ease. And so, most of my conversations went relatively well. Now there definitely were some that did not. And some people were super uncomfortable. Some men were like, don't even talk to me about this. I don't want to talk about this. Like, and then
hopefully that meant we'll buy your product. I don't want to have a conversation. Just tell me how much I'm going to have a conversation. Hopefully that's what it was.
Yeah, no, sometimes, but you would be surprised. I think early on it was just, it was such a new concept, it took a minute for people to really embrace it, but anyways, so when I was trying to find manufacturer to actually convert it like on a commercial level, the plant-based biofilm into my design, my MaskIT pouches. I was calling all over the country. I had at least 100 people tell me no. And during that process, it was very discouraging. But I do remember like a specific moment. I was sitting in my living room and like just feeling super discouraged. Like, because when you get told no, like so many times, like you're just like, well, is it ever going to happen? And I just had this like epiphany and I was like, time goes by either way. So either I can quit and do nothing and certainly nothing will happen, or I can keep trying and all I need is one yes. And if I can get that yes, then maybe I can actually make something of this.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of took that perspective and that kind of gave me strength to keep trying.
By either way.
Yeah.
That should be a hashtag of entrepreneurship. That is so true. I love that.
And so I was like, well, I might as well give it a try. And I just felt in my gut like I was supposed to do this.
It's going to be,
Yeah. And so I did. And I eventually found one gentleman in Southern California who said yes. So you can imagine my excitement in that moment. It actually took me 2 years from the time I had the idea. So fall of 2012, fall of 2014 is when I actually had a real MaskIT like in my hands and we were ready to launch. So I had originally in my business plan wanted to launch for public restrooms first, although I couldn't because at that point I had maxed out all of my credit cards. Like I had spent all of my money. I had paid for half the tooling that I needed for the wall mounted dispenser so we could provide the solution in public restroom settings, but I didn't have enough to pay for the rest of the tooling. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to let the fact that I can't do it in the way I want to stop me. So I guess we're launching for home use first, right? And I'm going to try this retail game and trying to get it onto store shelves so people could buy it at home. And so I had like just enough money to buy packaging, to package it. And the reality is when you are manufacturing a product, like you have to buy at scale to make it affordable, right? So like I had to buy like 20,000 boxes of like the 4 different products I had. So I had a size for tampons, a size for pads, wrappers, applicators, larger items. And then they were full-size boxes. And then I also made little travel packs, like so you could stick it in your purse, right? So I had 4 products. I bought 80,000 pieces of packaging. We went to our first trade show for retailers, like learned so much about that industry. It was insane, but it's a really long sales cycle. Like only once a year do retailers do like category reviews. There's like one category manager that manages like an entire store shelf and they decide what goes on it. And it's a very long sales process, but we launched on Amazon. We got like 5 local stores to take the product onto their shelves. And it was like immediate, like within a few weeks, like we realized like the packaging was not standing up on the shelf. It would just tip over. No. So I had like gone to, I had gone to like a professional box designer to like help me do this. And I just like I'd never done this before. So like, I didn't know the things to like look out for or whatever. But I, at that moment was just like, oh my gosh, like
dying inside.
Now I have all this packaging and it's not for the retail shelves. And so I just like, of course I was sick to my stomach, but I just kind of like took a deep breath and was like, there's nothing I can do about it. So we're just going to move forward. We have to redesign the packaging. I ended up
already this far.
Yeah. So I actually ended up borrowing my boyfriend's credit cards to get a second round of packaging that would stand up on the shelves. Then fast forward like a few months later, like realizing like we didn't even have the marketing money to support it. So it could be a great product and the buyer would love it, but women didn't know what it was or to look for it. And so it was just like, not necessarily moving off the shelves in the way that like I had originally hoped. But I was like, how can we get people to know about it without marketing money? And I just had another strike of inspiration. And I thought we should do a puberty education program. I don't have money, but I do have product and I have all this packaging that we can't use, but we could repurpose it and create student sample kits and send it out to schools all over the country. And so that was the start of a puberty ed program where we basically it's supplemental because at the puberty ed level, you're already being talked to about menstruation and like how to use a tampon or how to use a pad, but no one ever mentions what you're supposed to do with it afterward. So that kind of gave the instructor a way to bring that part up in the conversation, like educating these girls, like probably shouldn't flush, if you don't have anything else, of course, use toilet paper. Here's also an option, for you as well. So
I didn't know you were doing that. Are you still doing that now?
We do. We went through all of that packaging and now we actually have a specific designed student sample kit that was actually intentional for the program. But we send out about 20,000 kits to schools all over the country every year.
Insert that Friends episode where they're trying to get the couch up the stairs and he's like, pivot. This is an amazing story about pivoting. There's always a way to pivot and bring opportunity out of that, what people would look at as failure. Like, people like us, we look at those things as like a challenge almost. Totally. There's fire in you that looks at that of like, okay, here's my challenges. How am I going to get rid of all these boxes? And then boom, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, I, one more little, I guess, tidbit of that journey, getting the product. Once I finally found that guy who said yes, I like drove down to Southern California with a friend of mine. I was so excited for seeing MaskIT for the first time. And I walk in there and he had actually like made them incorrect. Like my whole concept was like, put your hand in it and be able to move your hand so you can remove your tampon or pad. And he had the sides completely sealed up and it was just impossible. And I'm like, I was so excited he tried. He did get some things right. Like he had the seal on the correct side so that after it would be inverted, you could use the seal. But the functionality I needed just wasn't there. And I was like so disappointed and also so happy he was willing to try. So I was like just trying to stay positive in this moment that I want to cry because it's not right, you know? And I like, for whatever reason, like I'm thumbing through all these bags and I find one that had a manufacturing flaw. So he had put like a bottom gusset into the bag and there was an offset I noticed. And again, inspiration, like just staying open, I guess, to, you know, your intuition and like whatever else. I looked at this bag and I said, do you see this mistake right here? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, do you think you could duplicate this mistake consistently and larger? And he was like, you know, maybe we might be able to do something like that. So I went back to my hotel room and I completely redesigned my prototypes, knowing what the technology might be able to do. Brought him back to the shop in the morning and he had a machinist come in and we had to actually custom design a subassembly that would create that mistake consistently and larger. And that's actually how we finally got MaskIT. So that's kind of a fun story.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
there's opportunity everywhere in here. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I think that part of my journey I've just learned over and over is just like staying open and like being willing to pivot. Like when things don't work out, like that's okay. You have to keep moving forward. Like don't spend too much time focusing on the mistakes because there's really nothing you can do about it. It's like, you know, take what you learned and keep going and moving forward. And
how were your kids through all of this? Were they watching mom like create this product? Were they involved in any way? Were they just, I mean, this has got to be so inspiring for them to have seen your journey and, you know, just when you were working on it to see where it is now. Did you, like, was it hard for you to be able, like, were you doing this at night? Were you doing it with them during the day? Were you still working a job where you were creating this?
I was fully committed
you were just you were in.
at the time. So I was like 100% in on that. And my kids obviously knew what I was doing, but I think in that moment they were too young to really like get it. You know what I mean? To actually get the what I was doing. And my youngest daughter was very young at the time. I think she was like maybe 5 when I had the idea. So like, you know, it was like when she was at school, I was like making all the calls and doing all the things, you know, and luckily it's interesting how life works out because at no other time in my life could have I done it. But my oldest daughters were, you know, in high school, like senior, my oldest daughter was a senior and then a sophomore. And so they were pretty self-sufficient. And then because I got divorced from the father of my youngest daughter, I would also take advantage of the time when he had her to, you know, do things. So anyways, I was definitely fully committed, but it was hard. But so fast forward back to like, we've got this product, we actually ended up getting it on more than 500 store shelves. Again, realizing like, we don't have marketing money to support, but we started the Puberty Ed program. And then eventually in the summer of 2016, I got my first outside investment. So I had been looking for investors, which is a very difficult thing. I live in a very small area without a lot of resources. And that includes like everything from flights to money to people. Like it's just been that part has been a struggle in itself. But I was able to raise enough money that we got enough for the tooling, the rest of that tooling. Because remember, I paid for half before. So I had the rest and I paid for the rest of it. And we were able to get the wall-mounted dispenser. And so it was the fall of 2016. So 2 years after having the actual MaskIT product when we launched for public restroom settings. So it was a very exciting time. We completely shifted our focus to that. Knowing my thought was like, if we could get it in public restroom settings, we were going to benefit health and safety for everyone. That facility managers would see a reduction in plumbing issues because like most of the time when we flush, it's not because we're trying to be vindictive, but like, what else are we supposed to do? Like, you know,
but if you're in a stall that ran out of toilet paper, which happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you just go, oh, I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm just going to do it because I'm not going to set it in a empty trash can without being wrapped or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, so I knew it would benefit facilities as well. It would be cleaner for their facility. They'd see less plumbing issues. Like, we would be benefiting health and safety for everyone. And so we really focused there. And I thought, you know, women are going to go into the restroom and they're going to see MaskIT and they're going to use it in the setting it's supposed to be used in, and they're going to like it, and then they'll go and buy it. So we basically focused for home solutions just on e-commerce at that point. So we just did not pursue retail shelves at all anymore. We were focusing on direct sales on our website and Amazon for that part of the business. And then we went through janitorial distribution initially because I had a very small team. So I needed like more feet on the ground to be able to tell people about the product, right? So anyways, we were very strategic with where we focused. We ended up getting into like a bunch of airports, and we were going after universities because we knew there'd be a big demographic of menstruating people. And then we also, initially we thought cruise lines, but we went to this cruise line trade show, and definitely they wanted all sorts of data, and we were a brand new product, which we didn't have to provide, you know, at the time, because it was just like, we were just too new. But we then found like we were having quick adoption, like in healthcare settings, because they really understood the risks, and then also Fortune 500 companies who could appreciate the innovation and want to provide their employees like the best experience possible and whatnot. But anyways, so we were having some traction, but not enough. Like, it was like, I think we were like in 6 or 7 airports, and you know, all these people would be like super interested, but they weren't pulling the trigger, you know, and it was like also just like this like highs and lows of like having a success and then being like, we're not making enough to make it. Like,
how much staff do you have at this time? You said, because you mentioned you need, you know, so I think sometimes as a entrepreneur, it's really hard to know, like you said, you go through your idea, you start, and then you get to this point where you're like, I actually can't do this all on my own. I need help, but you don't have the money to actually get the help, but you need the help in order to make the money.
Exactly.
You know? So where were you at with staff at this point before it kind of popped?
Yeah.
And how did you fund that?
Yeah. So the first few years, I was blessed to just have a few friends that were willing to like kind of help out when they could, with the promise of back pay if I could do it at some point. And so that was hugely helpful. I also had met, so I filed my patent in July of 2013, and later that summer I met who is now my husband. I know, right? So, and he was actually studying branding and advertising at the U of O at the time. And so I had told him about my idea. When I first met him, obviously I didn't know he was going to end up being my husband, but anyways, so he was actually also very excited about the idea because he had previously worked at a restaurant, and he was like a dishwasher basically and a hostess, but part of his job would be to clean out the restrooms at the end of the day. And so he had some traumatic experiences with cleaning out the women's restrooms. So he immediately saw the value in what I was doing, and just, he was kind of like that cheerleader. Like we didn't live close by, but you know, it was definitely key to like have him, because he put just the right amount of pressure. Cause like, I knew I could do it, but he knew I could do it. Yeah. And so like, I had to do it because I was not going to disappoint him either. So it was just like, he believed I could do it as much as I believed I could do it. And that sometimes carried me through like moments when I felt really discouraged, you know, like I'm going to do it. Like I have to do it. Right. But there is like, so 2016, we launched that wall mounted dispenser. I wanted to tell you one little story here. I want to make sure I don't miss it. I should tell this story too. Okay. So basically it's September of 2016, right? So like we're just launching the public restroom solution. And they say that like all press is good press, but we had this instance where this article got published about MaskIT. And this is like literally what it said. Capitalism has attracted a lot of criticism over the years, but you have to give it credit. It's the only economic system that allows overconfident entrepreneurs to introduce mind-boggling, stupid products to the world. This week, Fusion draws our attention to one of these products, MaskIT.
Are you serious?
Yes. And so she's like, Fusion writer Taryn Hill is not a fan. Her primary critique of MaskIT, which is a very good one, is that the product perpetuates period stigma. MaskIT is predicated on the notion that touching used menstrual products is disgusting. I would add, we've developed our own methods of discreet disposal of used menstrual products, methods that do not involve spending $7 on a cardboard box filled with 26 tiny pouches, methods like wrapping used pads and tampons in toilet paper. But really, I can't stress this one enough. Wrapping used pads and tampons in toilet paper, it's an oldie, but a goodie.
Oh my, again, welcome to entrepreneurship of people just wanting to tear you down for absolutely no reason.
Right. So I was devastated. I cried.
Sure.
I also reflected like on how someone could possibly construe this, because it was obviously like completely opposite of where I was coming from. Like our company motto was like, do good, be good, spread good, right?
Yeah.
And then it led me to reevaluate like how we're presenting ourselves. And I ended up changing our slogan because it was the only thing I could think of that possibly could be misunderstood. So initially I was using the slogan, keep your cycle under wraps. Because I thought it was cute, like somebody, like a woman would understand it, a man might not, right? You know what I mean? And anyway, so I changed the slogan because I was realizing that that wasn't accurately reflecting like actually how I was feeling. I just like thought it was cute, you know what I mean? So I looked at the feedback and, you know, changed that slogan and just really tried to forget about it, because I knew in my heart she was wrong. You know, like I just was the complete opposite. Like I just wanted to empower women. And I thought it's ridiculous that we're being exposed to this health issue because people don't want to talk about it. And I want to make things easier and better for all women, right? So like and it has nothing to do with like period shaming. Like it never did. Like the reality is it's personal. So, and I think that's the reason why we all have defaulted to trying to cover it in something, in toilet paper or inside our toilet paper roll, because it's like the same reason we wear panties. We're not ashamed that we have vaginas, but it's personal. You don't necessarily just want to leave it out there for everyone to see, right? So, but anyways, ironically, it was a few years later, but we actually got an order on our website, and we have a little question on there. How did you hear about us? And this woman said, an article on slate.com criticizing the product. The comments convinced me to try it. Seems like a great product and a much better alternative to toilet paper. Thank you, in all caps. So awesome. Just one of those learning lessons where like, you know, you just kind of have to let go of the things that hurt.
Let it go. Like, sometimes as entrepreneurs, when that stuff happens, we want to fight. We want to, you know, because we know, because entrepreneurship is so personal. No matter what your idea is, no matter what you're doing. So when someone tries to knock you down, knock your brand down, it's like, you have no idea the blood, sweat, and tears behind this idea, my work hours, like the money, the sacrifice, everything, right? And we want to stand up for that, and we want to fight loudly and publicly the same way that they did against us. And I can empathize with that, and I'm proud of you for doing that, because I too have found, you know what, it will all iron out. Right. The truth will be seen. As long as you stick to that motive and your heart and your core values and goals, like those values, they will be seen.
Right. And so that's what it was. It was hard. It was definitely difficult to hear somebody talking about me, essentially, because like my whole product, my whole brand, like everything is modeled after like my values and like, you know, so it was just like very painful. And, you know, that brings up like the journey can be really tough. There's actually a quote, actually by Elon Musk, ironically, but he says, being an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss of death. And I could relate to that in certain moments on my journey. But the next story I wanted to share is hard because it forces me to get a little bit vulnerable. But 2017, it was an incredibly hard year for me. But also the year I received like a really powerful message, which I want to share with everybody. And I'm going to read this because it's emotional for me. So like, I have to try not to cry. So the year started out with me being served. I was being sued by a gentleman that I had hired as an independent contractor in early 2016, who had promised he was going to raise us $3 million for us. He turned out to be a con artist. And I had fired him, so he was retaliating. My car had just broken down. Our sales were not coming in the way I had forecasted, and we were running out of money. My boyfriend's brother and 2 small children moved in with us because he was going through a divorce. At the same time, I had a friend with 3 children getting out of an abusive relationship come stay with me. Needless to say, my house was not a sanctuary, and I was stressed to the max. I was working long days and traveling all the time. I was having no luck finding new investors. It was August. I had enough money to pay my team for September, but not enough for myself. My only chance at getting more money was with a home equity loan through So Ready, which is like a local organization, but they would need an appraisal of my house first. Perfect timing for my fridge to break. I went to Sears and financed a new one. When they delivered the fridge, they broke a pipe and my house flooded. I couldn't afford the $2,500 deductible for my insurance, so I decided I'd do the repairs myself. But that would put off being able to have that appraisal for the loan that I needed. Then I had a health issue come up and I had to have surgery in mid-August. 3 days later, I got on a plane with bandages under my shirt and flew across the country for a meeting with the Orlando airport, which I could not afford to miss. I felt as if I was on the verge of breaking. But I made my way to Tampa after that meeting for the cheaper flight to come home. And I spent the evening on the beach by myself and I cried. I also made a plea with the universe. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know why this isn't happening fast enough, but I know what I'm doing is important. I had an incredible amount of pressure. If I were to fail, it would impact so many people, not only the people I care most about, but my investors, the people who believed in me. I asked for the strength to remain open enough to receive whatever it was that I needed to keep going. The next morning, I got to the airport and my TSA pre-check was not working. And so I ended up having to run through the airport to catch my flight. I was one of the last people to step on the plane and made my way to the back to find my seat. I had the middle seat in between 2 old men. I sighed and took a seat. Now, this is the part I can't even make up. So it turns out the gentleman on the right of me was a Hindu, and the gentleman on the left of me was a Buddhist. And somewhere in the sky between Tampa and San Francisco, I had a life-changing conversation, and I received what I needed to keep going. And what I needed was a message. Lose fear. Separate your life force from all circumstances, both good and bad. When you take away all the minds, what's left is you. Stay open, be open to receive, and you will always, always be taken care of. Lose fear. So that message changed everything for me. I got off the plane in San Francisco with a forever changed perspective and a renewed sense of strength. A few days later, I received a check from the insurance adjuster for the home repairs, and it just so happened to be the exact amount of my paycheck. Now, it was a team effort to get all the repairs on my house done, but by the end of September, I was able to get my house appraised and the loan funded in the middle of October. That allowed us to keep going.
Oh my gosh.
So that message in particular is like something that I come back to, and I've come back to multiple times when I'm feeling an incredible amount of stress. Just lose fear, because like at the end of the day, like even if you lose everything that is mine, like my house, my job, my business, my car, like what's left at the end of the day is still me.
Absolutely.
So
That is
You know,
so awesome.
that's been a huge learning lesson for me. So I just wanted to share that because I think that message can be like applicable for so many situations.
Yeah, it could be in a marriage, it could be as a mother, it could be
exactly.
having a part-time job that feeds your family, it could be as an entrepreneur, it can be everywhere.
Right, exactly. So
let's fast forward to go ahead. I want to fast forward to where you are. Let's
today.
talk about how much in sale. I want to hear how much in sales MaskIT is doing. And I know obviously the pandemic hit everybody hard. And we talked a little bit about how you pivoted with that and still had growth in 2021, which I love because you lose fear. That's so amazing.
Lose fear. And so today MaskIT is being used in more than 100 universities. We're also in about 76 airports across the country. We're in all sorts of really well-known Fortune 500 companies like Google and Geico and LinkedIn and Texas Instruments and Gilead and multiple big companies who saw the value in what we were doing and have adopted the solution. Definitely COVID impacted the public restroom sales, but we were blessed that at that point, the home solutions was really catching on. So our Amazon sales and website sales really increased. So I think it's a miracle, but we actually did still show growth in both 2020 and 2021. And I think this year I'm projecting that we'll do about $2 million in sales. So it's definitely been a journey, and I still am going through a lot of growth pains where the cash flow doesn't necessarily match up with when we need to order more and all of those normal problems. But I think the advice I would really just give anybody through any challenge is like to lose fear and trust the process. One thing I've really utilized in my life, in both just on a personal level and in business, is the terminology that I call secretize, which is essentially the law of attraction. And so like I have things written all over my walls, like I am a MaskIT millionaire, like trust the process. Like I'll literally list magazines and stores as if it's already happened, or customers that we want to be in, and just believing that it's going to happen. And it's crazy, but it does. So I really believe
manifesting that. Well, and you manifested that check to be there. And I think something that I love that with that last story that you shared is I think it's usually always when you let go, right? Because we're so used to like holding onto the reins. It's always when you let go. And like you said, trust the process, but let go is when you receive, you know, it's like it's just that waiting process of like, and then you catch yourself, and then it's like, I need to let go. I need to lose fear. I need to release in order to receive and accept and grow and move and continue walking.
Exactly. So, I feel like on a personal level, I think the way I got through my hardest times was really focusing on living in each moment. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can be overwhelming to look at the past because it can be filled with a lot of pain and challenges. And then also it can be overwhelming to look too far forward because then you start worrying and stressing, panicking, where it could be, right? So I think just having the perspective of taking every moment and every day for what it is and enjoying the small things, because sometimes that's really all we get. So like I really started having an appreciation for just the way the sun feels on my face, and for my favorite cocktail, and for the coffee I like, and for the bed I sleep in, and really gratitude for all the good things that you have. So I also have a poster above my bed where I've written down all the things I'm grateful for. And when I'm feeling down, I can refer to that, and it just kind of changes like your energy level. And then you become on the right vibration again to be able to be open to receive. So that's been a big thing for me. Also just like in the hard moments, allowing yourself to cry. Like it's okay to have hard days. Like we all have hard days, and
Yeah, they're going to happen, right? It's like expect them, because it's not going to be, you're not going to come up with an idea or be an entrepreneur or be a mother. You're not going to do anything in life and it's going to be smooth sailing ever. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's the world, and the world is a broken place, and all things are going to disappoint and be hard and be difficult. Oh, I thought it was going to be all of these things and now it's not. So now I'm disappointed and now I feel bad and now I'm this, but instead, okay, it's not what I thought it was going to be. And I have this history and I have this past, but you know what? Here's what it is. I'm thankful for all of these things. I'm happy. There's joy. Yeah, it's not the cookie cutter, mold or creation that I thought was going to happen, but it's still beautiful because all that brokenness and trial and all of that stuff is what creates so much beauty. It's like the check wouldn't have meant as much to you if you wouldn't have gone through the hardship, so it's allowing that hardship to happen, being in that moment of like, almost like getting excited, sometimes I get excited in failure because I'm like, ooh, that means I'm getting closer to something that's happening, Now I think I've just gotten excited about it of like, all right, it's coming, it's coming. Like there's been this many no's, there's got to be a yes that's coming soon.
Exactly. And I guess the other thing that I would want to just share, just because when you first messaged me, you mentioned like, what are some of the things that made you like keep going or feel like you're worth it and like good enough to keep going, and it'll redesign your life. And it just really hit me that I wanted to share that it's a work in progress, and like healing is not linear, and healing can look like this. And I think that's also very true for my entrepreneurial journey. So like my journey has been like this, right? But at the end of the day, like just having compassion for yourself, and realizing that, some things in life are really hard, and healing is a process, and learning to love yourself is a process, and you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and
there might not be an end point.
And
that's we look for like, how much longer? When is it done? When do we arrive? When does the heal? Am I healed now? Is it done? No, it's just going to keep going the whole time, and it's going to come and it's going to go and it's going to ebb and it's going to flow, and take that for what it is, because there's beauty in that.
So just be okay with the fact that it's a journey. And there's going to be harder days than others, but don't expect healing to be linear. It's
absolutely not. 100% agree.
On both a personal, that's really from a personal level, but again, with anyone who would want to, take on an entrepreneurial journey, just like be mentally prepared that it's not going to be like this. It's a lot more like this. So, so those are kind of the things that came to mind when I saw what the topic of your podcast was, is just wanting to share those tidbits that have gotten me through a lot of hard times. So
what a story. What a story. What an amazing story. What a beautiful story. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
We love MaskIT. We have it in the studios. I took some from the studios and have it at home and carry some in the purse. So when we met, I just like, I don't know, when you talked about your product, I was just like, why? It was one of those months where I was like, man, why didn't I think of that? You know how you always think that as an entrepreneur, like all these things come out, you're like, oh yes, that's a good one. Why didn't I think of that from the start? Yeah, it was awesome. So even since then, it's been so cool. It's been so cool to be able to keep in touch with you and to know where you're at now, even from that point, that's only been a couple of years. So I'm excited for you. I'm even more excited for you after hearing this story. And it's been super inspiring to hear. I mean, I cried right along with you, had goosebumps a couple times.
Sorry, I could not look up. It's like,
it was awesome. I think too, as an entrepreneur, me coming from a standpoint of, I've gone through so much hardship as an entrepreneur and gone through some of that same things. And I think at times as an entrepreneur, and a single mom too, there's a lot of isolation that comes with that, you know, when
Totally.
you run into the hills and you're gunning and you're going and you believe in yourself and there's all these people around you, or maybe not, but just that don't believe in you, or you're working so hard because you just know in your heart that it's going to work.
Exactly.
And you know, and then being a single mom on top of that, you know, at periods in both of our lives, I think for me it's been inspiring to feel, you know what, 2 years ago when I thought I was alone, like I wasn't, or this amount of time ago when I thought I was alone, I actually wasn't. Like, you were in that same space. So it's been actually quite comforting to be able to hear your story of those hardships, and knowing that me going through hardships, you know, you just almost feel like there's just this community that we often as entrepreneurs don't talk to, because we're in it.
Yeah, we're in it.
We're in the mud all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes
Another fun thing I wanted to mention, because you had asked about my daughters previously, but today two of my daughters actually work for me. So my oldest two daughters both work for MaskIT.
That's so awesome.
So at this point in their lives, they definitely get it and understand. And I think,
good job, Mom. Way to go.
I think for me, one of the coolest moments was actually getting my patents in the mail.
Absolutely.
Was hugely satisfying. Took 5 years to get them, by the way, so it's not a fast process, but anyway.
Well, again, I feel like we need to insert cue the Overcomer song. I feel like I'm going to edit that in when we launch this podcast, because it's been, what a ride, huh? What a ride.
It's been a ride.
Well worth it, right?
Yeah, definitely worth it. And I don't know how your podcast works, but I'd be happy to share like my presentation that I had done for an entrepreneurial thing that kind of has like little slides and like tidbits and quotes and things like that, if anyone's interested in hearing a little bit more about my story.
Yeah, let's definitely share that in the resources. We can put that in all the comments after we post this too. So that would be great. Thanks for offering. Well, thanks for being here. It's been so good to see your face, even though it's on video, and just chat with you, hear more of your story, and cry with you. I feel like we're bonded even more now. So
hugs through
virtual hugs. All right. And we'll talk soon.